have as much information as possible after leaving the session today to give serious consideration to doing an upgrade, and again, that you're comfortable with knowing what all the steps are that you need to consider. So with that, I'm going to ask Jim to get us started. Okay, so again, from an introduction standpoint, I am a regional director with Symphony Corporation, which is now our larger parent for the HR21 group. And Jim Kinney is one of our senior consultants, and he is with us today as well. And Kavi, who is our marketing manager, is with us, and he's the one who really has been sending out and taking responsibility for all the communications with all of you. You should have his contact information, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact any one of the three of us. I do want to just make sure you know a little bit about Symphony HR21, and hopefully most of those of you who are here today do know who we are. We really are a provider of technology, business process improvement, consulting in the human capital management area. JGI has actually, and HR21 has been doing this now for the past 27 years. The Symphony Corporation was an organization that was founded in '97, and we've now taken our two organizations and made ourselves a larger provider of professional services. So hopefully you'll have a chance to get to know all of us you know, at some future time. But we have been working with enterprises to implement, improve, integrate, change business process, find new technology to support the human capital management business intelligence area for a lot of years now. And we've had the privilege of working with ADP and many of their customers for the past 12 years. We have roughly 350 employees globally. We have a great deal of subject matter expertise across all of healthcare, HCM, benefits, payroll, human capital, training development, career development, to be able to support your organizations. Any questions so far? When we look at the enterprise application and we look at the version 5, what we have found is that in enterprise, as you see in the diagram is right in the center, we have found that there have been improvements, enhancements, expansion of capability to the user interface, to how you can configure the application, how you import data into the enterprise application through the import tools, the enhancements to security to not necessarily change security, but to change and simplify the method for managing security, which you know is a very significant effort. There are some functional enhancements we want to introduce to you. There are some changes and improvements in the payroll process. There are some infrastructure changes and as well some reporting enhancements. So we're going to take time over the next 50 minutes and talk to you at a very high level about all of these major changes that now exist within Enterprise version 5. And again, I encourage you to ask questions. As we kind of characterize the enhancements, we find that customers that are using Enterprise version 5 are finding significant productivity enhancements with the way the product now can be configured and managed. The menus have replaced the wheel, and that there are some common icons that have been added to the application. EV5, as we know, continues to be very process-oriented and continues, again, to work off that methodology. There have been a lot of panel changes that have been made to make things a little bit more logical, a little simpler for the ultimate end user. There are some new navigation icons, and we find that the learning curve for new users coming onto the enterprise system is much shorter.
Phyllis hit on a couple of really good keys here in talking about significant, this is Jim Kinney, by the way, talking about significant productivity enhancements. When I go through this, the next several slides here, I'm going to talk about all the things that we can do with this application. But one of the things that struck me when I first started using EB5 was all the things they did to make my job a lot easier as an HR professional. And I also see that with all of my clients. We talk here about the menus. are replacing the wheel. So the wheel is gone. When you log into EV5, this is essentially what you see when you come in. Obviously, the wheel is gone, but what you see are a series of bullet points over on the left, starting with people and ending down at system administration all the way at the bottom. And so this really replaces the wheel navigation. There's some new icons in play, one of which is the file upload in the very top right-hand corner, right below the red X. That allows you to load files right onto your server, whether it's the server at the hosting center or if you're a premise-based client. So you can load them there for importing either into the application or into pay data entry, for example. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. One of the nice things about EV5, unlike prior versions, when you open any one of these areas like people, you can open any one of the other areas at the same time and have multiple menus and multiple panels open, and they float around and you can put one thing on top of another. So you don't have to minimize to open something new. You can actually open multiple things and have them all open at the same time. I could, for example, here be in the people side and change job position, which by the way looks and feels much like it does in prior versions of Enterprise. I could also be in someone's record over on employee information and processes, such as looking at their deductions. So I can have those two things open and just flip the panels back and forth or slide them around at will. So it really saves some time and effort. You don't have to open and close things all the time. One of the other nice things that has occurred with Enterprise is that it's strongly configurable. In the past, if you were a site-based client, you wanted to change something on a panel, you needed to go into eBuilder and make a field hidden or make it required or default it. And you had to have some training in eBuilder to do that, or you could really kind of hurt yourself. If you're a site-based client, you could do that. If you're a hosted client, you probably didn't have access to eBuilder. Well, now a lot of those same functionalities, and I'll show you that in just a second, are included automatically within Enterprise. Obviously, this is a tool for the HRIS folks, not for everyone in the organization, but it allows you to do things with the tool to actually customize it for yourself. Another nice expansion is the query tool. Unlike prior versions where you could run queries up to 999 rows, here the query tool allows you to run unlimited numbers of rows. You can run 999, or you can run it in an unlimited mode, and it runs as an SQR in the background through the process monitor. Phyllis touched briefly on security enhancements. A lot of things have been done here to simplify the administration. Security still continues to be as strong as ever. A couple of simplification things that have been done is if you administer security, you know there are classes of operators, and a class has with it department grants that define who you see. Within EV5, one can vary the department grants within a class by operator. So instead of having 10 classes for 10 locations that all look alike, you can have one location with those 10 operators, and each operator can have a different security grant as to who they see. Another thing that's been done for the security administrator is that in the past, if we wanted to grant a new panel and we had 10 classes, we had to grant it 10 times, one at a time. Now we can go in and grant that panel to all 10 classes in one step. So again, another nice savings. The audit reporting has been simplified. There's now capability to report across various data entry methods such as ESS and MSS, as well as imports, and good old-fashioned data entry at the operator level. The reporting is much more concise and much more detailed. The last thing on this slide that I want to talk about is certainly not anything other than saving the best for last. A new import utility has been added to EV5, which is a tremendous time saver. It allows, unlike the old import utility, it allows for task-based imports that follow rules and not tables. So in the past, if you wanted to import something into the job table with the old import utility, it was one table, a very technical import, a lot of work to structure your file. Here you can import, for example, a new hire list, and people have been using this for acquisitions. You can build a new hire list and import into personal data, job, employment, the benefit program, all in one file, either a CSV file or a text file. It's fairly easy to use. It takes a fairly short period of time to teach someone how to use it. You can insert rows into tables. You can update data within tables. Unlike the old import utility, it will carry forward data from the prior row for effective dated rows. You can also delete data or even delete rows from tables if you so desire. It's a very, very good functional tool. What I want to show you next, just briefly, is the configurability tool. This is actually just a screenshot of the change job position section of the personnel actions panels. And when one wants to configure any of these tasks, one goes up to edit and down to configurability, and up will pop what looks like essentially a panel without data in it, but a lot of X's and so forth. Up at the top, you'll notice some boxes that allow you to move things around. We have a default tab. We have a button for labeling. We have a button for required and a button for hiding. So I could take any one of these fields, and you notice, by the way, there's some data missing here. We've actually hidden this particular field because we don't use it. So I could actually take any one of these fields and make it required, or change the label, or hide it, or default it. I could default it if it's logical to default, by the way. And I can do that and save it. I could do that for essentially any of the panels within the application. The other nice thing is, within the application itself, EV5, then there is a listing at the main menu level, back at the first login screen, that allows you to pull up all your configurations and see everything that you've done. And I have a client right now that has pages upon pages of configuration changes that they've done. And to eliminate any one of them, you merely highlight it and delete it, and it's back to the way it was. Under the heading of imports that I talked about, this is merely a beginning list of imports that come delivered. It's under personnel actions and import. Down at the bottom here, you'll see import employee and company information. You merely define the import and then build your file and run it. This has the capability of bringing in data for not only the employee level, but also for company setup. So you can bring in new deduction codes. You can bring in new departments. You can send those departments right off to the individuals. You can do job changes. You can do benefit enrollments. It's very comprehensive, and it's a very good tool to use, and it's fairly easy to use. And it's designed mainly for HRIS, but not totally. It can be for end users. I have people in the payroll departments that are with my clients that use this. And it's different, by the way, than EPIP imports, but it's also a very usable tool in that sense. Saves a lot of time and effort.
Jim, let's check with the audience for a minute and just see if there's any questions. Anything that we've introduced so far that has brought up a question for you? Okay, let's continue.
All righty. Thanks, fellas. The new application is also compliant with EEO reporting and VETS 100 reporting. When you upgrade from prior versions, there are conversion programs that convert your data to the new classifications for both EEO, for race, ethnicity, for example, and also for VETS 100 reporting. There's a number of benefit enhancements that have been made. One notable one, and I'll talk about another one a little bit later, is the addition of goals to all of the benefit enrollment panels. So if you're doing benefit enrollments, goals are listed right on the panel, and you can update and change goals from the benefit panel without having to go into the payroll side. So if you have a limit, for example, on a life insurance deduction of X dollars in a year, you can set up a goal for that right within the enrollment. Something that I think is a nice addition, HR user data and union information is now effective dated. What that means in a nutshell is that you have history. I have clients that have HR user data that up until EV5 was not effective dated. There was no history, so if you make a change, you lose the history. Now it's effective dated and historic. Union information, by the way, has been moved from the employment table to the job table. Step progression has been automated, so if you have people on step progression, you can set them into a particular program, run an SQR, and it will automatically update everyone. So it's an automated form. We also have, if you use the org chart here, the ability to see the org chart by several different fields. Prior versions, it was the department ID. Now it can be by location, by reports to person, or by supervisor ID. So that's a nice touch as well. I do have a screenshot, by the way, of the VETS 100 report, which shows on the left-hand side the navigation for EEO and AAP. It supports the pre-2007 EEO reporting, and it also, of course, when you reported for that, being it's 2012, it will archive your reports so you can always go back and see them. It will also allow for 2007 and later reporting under the correct classifications. VETS 100A is separate from the VETS 100 depending upon the type of business you are. If you need to do VETS 100 reporting or VETS 100A, it's available to you. And within the personal data panels for the employee, there are sections for recording VETS 100 information and VETS 100A information as well. And please, if there are questions as I'm going through this, feel free to jump in. Another nice enhancement, and this is very functional for one of my clients, you can specify different mailing addresses for checks and W-2s. So, you know, up until now you've had a home address and a mailing address. We can specify where we want to mail checks to so that if a person is working away from their home for a period of time and they want the check or voucher to come to them, it will come to them at that address. There's a department turnover report available, so we can actually do turnover ratios right within the people reporting section. And it's a tool that also allows you to roll up, so you can actually look at more than just a department at it. Hours worked are linked to the absence panel, so if you're doing FMLA, you've got that available to you. One of the nice enhancements is there's an HR-only pay group function. So we can set pay groups up for non-paid employees and also for international employees for that matter, but we can set up non-paid groups of employees. I have a client right now that has 4 Canadian pay groups that are processed on pay at work. We've got them also in EV5, and we're managing their HRIS, or excuse me, their HR information in EV5 through a non-paid pay group. So it eliminates the need to have such things as taxes set up for these employees because, needless to say, they're not being paid. Benefit program rules allow for automatic end dating. I know I'm giving you a lot of stuff here, and by the way, you'll get a copy of this when we're done. But benefit program rules allow for automatic end dating upon termination for both general deductions as well as for benefits. And there's rules around that for automatic end dating that I'll show you momentarily. The new version is compliant with the 2012 healthcare reporting on W-2s. Essentially, you need to set up a memo code and then populate that memo code, and you can do that either on a per payroll basis or once a year. And then that data appears as required on the W-2 for medical premium reporting. This particular slide shows at the top the benefit program, just a typical EMP benefit program. The middle slide shows where you would normally see a listing of deduction codes. If there was a deduction code here, we could check the box for automatic end dating, and then we could set up the rule next to that, such as at termination, at the end of the month, and so on. And we can do the same thing by plan type for benefits. We can automatically end date the benefits, again, both for coverage and for deductions on a termination without having to go back and do them manually and try to remember. And this is set up by plan type, and we don't have to do it for all deductions or all plan types. If you wanted to do it for medical, dental, and vision, but not life insurance, you could certainly do that. Again, a productivity enhancement, a real time saver You know, it just saves all the steps of what you've had to do. Under the payroll enhancements in AutoLink, there's a real change in EV5 for the AL Pay 16, as it's often referred to, or the Employee Changes Report. You can now run it anytime during the payroll process without having to run Prepare for Transmission first. In the old days, you had to run Prepare for Transmission, then you would run the Employee Changes Report. If you found something you didn't like, you'd have to go set the cycle status back, go back and fix things, and then go back and forth. Here you can run this AL Pay 16, the Employee Changes Report, anytime in the process. You do that, it kicks off the PFT portion of the program only to the extent that it creates the differences report that allows you to report this. If you run the Prepare for Transmission and then run the AL Pay 16, it will actually set the cycle status back automatically for you. Pay data entry batches now have the ability to both include them and retain them for future use, as well as restrict them so no one else can do data input into them, and I'll show you that momentarily. It's a really nice feature. If you have a batch that you're running literally every payroll, you can set it up to be retained, and it will stay there until you turn off retain. It's a real time saver again. There's a delivered PTO balance report, so you don't have to go into the reporting tool and do the taken and allowed and subtract the two out with the derived field. It runs this automatically, and you can do it right from the payroll steps. There's a new tax jurisdiction that you can default based on work location. I have a number of clients that default their people to worked in location. So it defaults them to that work location as opposed to the state that they may live in. There's also auto-loading of payroll files. So you go out and run your payroll, you receive your payroll. If you've set this up, it will automatically load the detail year-to-date and any other files for you. And you can do it either on an immediate basis or on a scheduled basis. Again, another productivity enhancement and a step saver. I talked about the Employee Changes Report. It's now under Step 5. So the AL Pay 16 report doesn't appear after PFT. Another thing with this Employee Changes Report, if you don't run it, for example, and then you run PFT, it will automatically run the Employee Changes Report for you. So again, another time saver. A real good thing to do. This is a typical pay data entry batch screen. So if we had a batch name here, we could choose include, retain, or restrict. If we include, it will be included in the current payroll cycle. If we retain it and include it, it will be included in all future cycles until you turn it off. You can also, by the way, uncheck include and check retain, and it won't be included until such time as you want it to be. And restricting it just merely restricts it to the person who created it so that no one else goes in and plays with the bonus batch, as it were. Under pay data entry, some enhancements there are the ability to import any size batch. If you have a number of batches in pay data entry for a given pay group, you can search across all batches at one time and find an employee that might appear in multiple batches. So this is a real time saver in that you don't have to search batches individually. You can search all the batches at one time. There's an increased number of rows in the view, so you can just pretty much do whatever you need to do in an almost unlimited fashion. And you can dynamically create a view in Rapid Pay Data Entry by bringing in or importing in a file. And it will set that up for you automatically. And then you can default whatever the fields are that you want. We've been talking about EV5 in not necessarily general terms, but in the most recent enhancements or levels of EV5, which is 5.02 and 5.03. There are several things that have been added that we'd also like to point out, because if you upgrade today, you will get upgraded to 5.03, and all of these will come along. Currently today, within the payroll system, you can have up to 3 rates of pay, rate 1, rate 2, and rate 3. They're shown on the AutoLink details panel of the change job position function. Now you can have up to 9 rates of pay. and you can specify what those are and what they actually mean in the application, and then you can apply them as necessary. Another real time saver here, and I have a client that implemented this very recently, is the automatic creation of retro pay batches. What does that mean? Well, gee, it's now March 1st. We go back and give somebody an increase back to January 1. We have to sit down and manually calculate their retro pay. This batch will automatically do that. It will look at any effective dates that are prior to the current cycle, that have an action date within the current cycle, that have pay changes associated with that, and it will create entries into a batch that you can then process. A real time saver. It will do all the calculations for you, and it actually works. So if you're thinking, yeah, I got to go check this out, we have, and it really works. It really does create them. There's some automatic data integrity checks before you run PFT, so it goes out and makes all the logic checks so that when you run PFT, prepare for transmission, you actually have all the data checks done and you don't have the standard errors. Another real nice feature is the ability to lock an employee's taxes. So you get an IRS order that says you have to deduct this many exemptions and this much money from an employee's check. You can lock that so that nobody can come in and inadvertently put a new W-4 through and change that. So you can lock it as long as you want. And lastly, there's an unlimited number of 3-character accumulator codes available to you. There's actually a limit, but no one in their lifetime will ever reach it. So you go through the 3-character codes. Any questions at this point?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, it relates to the automatic calculation of retro pay.
Yep.
When it does that calculation, does it take into consideration an employee's shift and the overtime pay?
It would take into consideration any hours that the employee has been paid for and any rates of pay that they've been paid for. So the answer is yes. So it goes back and it looks at, for example, let's just assume I got a 15-cent increase and I worked so many regular hours, so many overtime hours, and so many shift hours. It would apply that 15 cents across all of those different hours and then take the difference, just like if you calculated it essentially in a spreadsheet.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
It's a pretty slick tool.
Can't even imagine it.
It just saves a whole lot of work. I have clients that have spreadsheets galore to calculate this, and they do that, and then they do the retro batch, and it comes up to essentially the same answer there.
Wow.
Any other questions? Another time saver is we have the ability to generate the AL pay reports across multiple pay groups. So if you're running, AL pay 10 and you want to run it across multiple groups, you can run it across multiple groups and not have to run it one per pay group. So that again is a time saver. I'll get it. We have the ability to automatically default a new hire's taxes. So we can set that up to default it to the worked-in state for, let's say, and we can automatically default the taxes. So we don't have to go out after we hire the employee, set up the taxes if we want to default them to a basic default. Obviously, if they have a W-4, you're going to set it up for the W-4, but you don't have to worry about incomplete file numbers. We have the ability to prorate salaried employees' pay if they have changes during the term. I have actually not used this, and I'm looking forward to doing such. We can also add additional percent deduction codes. Normally what you have is a number of deduction codes in the 80 series, the 70 series, for example, with percents. Now we can add additional percent deduction codes so we won't necessarily run out like we do today. And lastly, the check digit numbers, or the check numbers, I should say, have been increased from 8 to 10 digits. Okay, let's talk about infrastructure for a minute. There's support for XP Service Pack 3 and Windows 7 for client workstations. I'm running Windows 7 Ultimate on my PC right here, and on my laptop I'm running XP Service Pack 3, and I'm working normally within the 5.03 environment for EV5. There's also support on the server side for Windows 2008, both on the apps and the database server. SQL Server 2008 database is supported. The Java version for Windows, for EV5 5.03 is the 1.6.0_20. I believe it's 1.6.0._6 for prior versions of EV5. And lastly, there's support, obviously, for the Internet Explorer 8 version of Windows for both 5.02 and 5.03. So it's really nicely up to date with the environment. The one possible hiccup in all of this is that for people on 64-bit Windows 7 platforms, they're just in the process now of updating the ADPR reporting capability and the portal capability for hosted clients to be able to support that 64-bit without having to do some internal finagling, so to speak. For hosted clients, by the way, everything I've talked about up until now is available for hosted clients as well as site-based clients. There are a few minor changes that are nice for hosted clients. There's an automatic pushback of payroll files. So just like you can automatically load your payroll files, you can have them automatically pushed back to you. So if you're a hosted client, you run your payroll, you'll automatically receive, and if you want, automatically load your payroll files, which, again, another time saver. ADP reporting and the portal in general allows for a single user sign-on. So you can go into the portal, sign on with one username and password with your digital cert. You can launch EV5 from there without having to log in. You can launch ADPR, the ADP reporting tool, health and welfare, ESS, all from being logged on with a single user sign-on. You can report against multiple products and services. I commonly, for my client, report on health and welfare as well as payroll and job data and combine it all into one report, which is really pretty nice, to say the least. And you have the ability to extract data in any kind of format you essentially want. Obviously, all of the different Excel formats, text format, you can do it as a PDF and HTML. So a lot of nice capability there in the ADPR side and in the portal side. A lot of time savers. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Phyllis, who's going to talk about milestones, and we're certainly here to answer any other questions that you may have.
As I can imagine, all of you who are attending the session today are giving some consideration to an upgrade. And part of the reason that we talk a lot about the new features and functions that are available in the later versions is that you're all having to, I'm sure, build a business case to be able to justify the cost and the investment of time in doing an upgrade. And we see customers who are moving to later versions really leveraging a lot of the new features and functions. So that means that they're getting a real return on their investment. But whether you are a hosted client or a premise client, doing a project is a project, and there are phases to a project. And the basic phases in an upgrade is your planning phase, your technical upgrade phase, what we call the training workshop phase, the plans for enhancements, test plan development, as well as execution of all your testing, and then the rolling out and introducing and communicating what's new to your user community. What's very key is that, again, you need to go through all of the same steps for any single upgrade project. The big difference in a hosted versus a premise-based is that your technical upgrade, the steps that are necessary to take your database, run it through the standard scripts, create a new database in the newer version, will be done for you by ADP. They will take full responsibility for making sure that the database they turn over to you to be trained on, to make sure the enhancements are moved over correctly, to begin planning your testing phase will be done for you. And then you will then be responsible for making sure that the quality of the product that you're going to roll out to your user community meets all expectations. And what that really means is that everything that you're doing today in the product is working correctly, that everything you're introducing new is working correctly and to the best for your customer and your user, and that any enhancements that were made to the product along the way that may be changing as a result of a new feature or function, again, that everybody is educated and trained and ready for that. So you will always have and should have a detailed plan that obviously goes into much more detail than I just did, all of these phases and all of the tasks that are associated with them, so you make sure that from beginning to end you have really done a good project. Any high-level questions for me? Everybody comfortable in knowing and understanding the steps that you need to go through for an upgrade? Okay. Well, what we have found in talking to the clients is that there are lots of reasons why clients are doing an upgrade, not just because they're on an older version and they want to make sure that they're on a current version, but they may be changing their health and welfare solution, so timing-wise it makes sense. They may be introducing other ADP products, so from an integration standpoint it makes a lot of sense. They may want the ability to reconfigure how the product looks on the glass and how things are labeled and how things are organized. And so again, they're able to take advantage of these capabilities. Sometimes you're going to begin introducing more self-service, whether it's employee self-service or management self-service. You want to, again, be able to use this as part of an upgrade project. Reporting. The ADPR reporting for the hosted clients gives them a whole new tool. For the premise-based clients, there's a new version of ReportSmith. But again, you want to be able to take some time to get reorganized and improve on your reporting strategy. And lastly, you know, we've seen a lot of situations where clients have said, you know what, if I'm going to go in and do an upgrade, I'm going to look at how I'm doing business. I want to look at my processes. I want to make improvements. I want to streamline things. And again, this is a great reason to do it as part of an upgrade project. Now we can turn, Jim. Okay, so why Symphony? Well, we have a lot of ADP relationships, and we've been doing projects with the ADP customers for the last 12 years. We have a lot of product knowledge, and we've done many, many, many upgrades, and so we feel very comfortable with the process and the steps and the gotchas. We have a lot of great clients who are very referenceable in terms of talking about the work that we've done for them. We are very committed to human capital management systems. That's what we do. That is our area of expertise. We have a great team, very strong team approach, and we have a lot of very experienced consultants who know these products. Questions? You guys are a quiet group today. Jim and I like to have lots of questions. Okay, well, either we did a great job and we answered everything that you came to the webinar today to try to learn, or if we didn't, please feel free to call either Kenny Rydell or myself. Our numbers are there on the screen. A copy of the presentation will be available for you, and we would love an opportunity to talk to you at any point to make sure that you really are very clear about how to do an upgrade in the enterprise version product. We have Jim's attention here. He works with these products every single day, so if you have any questions. If not, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you again for attending.